Welcome to the Awe and Wonder podcast. We're in Series 8 talking about AI possibilities. And today we're joined by Dr. Samuel Sennott, who is an associate professor of special education at Portland State University. And he also happens to be the co-creator of the original Proloquo2Go. Dr. Sennott, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sarah. This is beautiful to be with you all.
Yeah, we're really excited. You're neighbors to us here in Washington State and down in Portland. I was there. I was mentioning I went there for a pod training years ago and had met you then. And I know you're doing a lot of work, a lot of great work around AAC. So we're excited to hear about that.
Yes. So tell us about yourself and your experience with AI.
Yeah. So the story goes that I've worked my way up to becoming now a full professor. They just promoted me to full professor. And
congratulations.
Great.
Yeah. It's a gift to be able to do science and be a research scientist and also really work in the community. So I never thought I would end up as a professor in academia at a university. And I started out as a volunteer in my hometown of Hopkinton, Massachusetts. And I was working at this respite center with all these people with various disabilities and kids with Down syndrome and autism and playing with them on the playground. And then I worked with a number of adults with various disabilities and just fell in love with service. And I had always been a camp counselor. And so I love working with youth. This inspired me to go back to college. And I went back for special ed. I got a special ed degree. Being out there in the schools was amazing. Being able to work with a small group, relatively small group of students in a public elementary school who all needed AAC. And so I had this great classroom program, and I worked it really hard. And I'd say that the first real connection to AAC, some of the origins came from that work in the classroom. And I'd love to tell you more about that in depth. You had been asking about, is there a particular student?
Yeah, we'd love to hear.
So I had these students in my first classroom who had complex communication needs and complex motor needs. And they were, each of the students, when they first came to us, didn't have a working communication system and didn't have access. And so we were trying out a lot of stuff. And back at the time, IntelliTools Classroom Suite was a popular software for adapting curriculum, and it was real engaging. And so we had been hearing about this concept from Caroline Musselwhite and Linda Burkhart, co-plan sequence social scripts. Yeah. And so they were showing us how to use the single switch message buttons to press the button and hear a message and then hear it sequenced out. And you could say your ABCs or count numbers. You could tell a story. And so I got really frustrated that basically when you re-recorded that communicator, it would erase the last messaging. And it was very discouraging that we'd work super hard and find like a same age, same gender first grader to record this message, and it would be lost. So I came up with this idea to start recording them. And I started recording them on my iPod, and then with the computer, we started using a software called Audacity, which was a free open source software for recording. And we started pitching the voices and slowing them down. And we could make child-friendly voices just with off-the-shelf software.
Interesting.
And so what happened, though, is we felt like the kids with the scripting weren't getting much agency.
Yeah.
Public elementary school and, just giving the kid the switch and they could share a message, and that's great. They could choose that message, but they didn't have a lot of choice about which phrases went into that story or that script.
Yeah, whose phrase was that? Whose script was that, really?
Yeah, who's that coming? Yeah, where's that coming from?
Right.
And so we came up with an idea that with IntelliTools, we could set up these menus where kids could select at that like opener. Do you want to say
Yeah.
hi or what's up or yo? Or something else, right?
Mhm.
And they
Right.
could select at each level of the conversation some choices. And then it would automatically put it together
Yeah.
and make it into a script. And so you could do all that with the classroom suite technology. They had a scripting system where you could code it up to make basically your own app.
Mhm.
And so we did that, and the students absolutely loved it. And that was, an early inspiration for this work. And
Wow.
so that was, a taste of kind of constructing and designing something in that space. And that's kind of the origin for me.
We love
Hmm.
that because we've kind of throughout this concept of AI possibilities been talking about agency a lot and
Hmm.
bringing in the student's voice and making sure it's co-created. So that just flows perfectly with kind of what we've been learning. And it's so fascinating that here you are doing that, before all of this AI and
So when did you create Proloquo2Go? What year was that?
Yeah. So from that classroom, Proloquo2Go was largely, get started 2007,
Okay.
2008 really took off. And so I had been in the classroom and then I went down with, do you know Carol Zangari,
Mhm.
Hmm.
the AAC specialist? So she and Marianne Lowe were working at Nova Southeastern in South Florida and had a great experience going from elementary down to early childhood and working
Hmm.
with a small group of children at the preschool age. And um, then during that time, when I was there, I found a hacker in Europe, and we put together an app. I had been recording these voices like I shared and pitching them and kind of coming up with little social boards. And so we made a demo and I presented it at Closing the Gap in a presentation workshop titled Keep on Rocking in the Free World after Neil Young's song, and really focused on music, sport, and art as these socially connecting activities. And
Nice.
I always remember showing it to Gretchen Hanser,
Mm.
Hmm.
the OT and AAC specialist now in New York City, and she just was like, "That's important. That's awesome." And
Yeah.
some people didn't get it. Like some of the companies, when they saw the demo, they go, "That's kind of like, is that like a Palm Pilot?" And I was like,
Oh,
"No,
wow.
it's Apple. It's cool." And
That's funny.
so yeah, so Dave Niemeyer from Assistiveware, he was working. Doing all kinds of great things in assistive technology, and we had become friendly through the conferences, Closing the Gap and CSUN and ATIA. And we had a great experience collaborating. He had an apartment in Amsterdam and worked out of his apartment. And this is before Assistiveware became a big company. And we were collaborating, and it was this great back and forth. I went up to my parents' basement up in Vermont, and he was up in his apartment, and we would use rudimentary video
Right.
technology, and we had a real nice collaboration. It was a real beautiful experience. So thankful for the time with the families and with David constructing. Yeah.
That is so interesting. You name dropped so many people that we've actually interviewed on this
Oh,
podcast in
cool, cool.
various series. So anybody listening can queue up on many of those names and hear their origins and things. But I do think that the collaboration is the key in our past, in our present, and certainly in our future, because it's not going to be brand specific here. This AI AAC, as we're head forward, it's going to be a very collaborative, co-constructive situation. Just coming up with how best to incorporate AI with AAC and maintain all those pieces that you're talking about, agency as well as what is the purpose of all this and what's motivating to communicate and all the pieces that come to successful communication opportunities.
Mm. Yeah.
So, and now you have a personal experience that you were going to share.
Yeah, yeah. So I had to kind of continue the arc. I had um, co-created Proloquo2Go with David, and I had then just started a PhD program at Penn State and had a terrific experience learning science, clinical knowledge at Penn State, amazing place. And then I was successful in obtaining an assistant professor position here in Portland. And so, um, new professor working super hard in the community and have had a absolutely incredible experience here in the Northwest in Portland, Oregon. And so I get tenure and promotion to associate professor. And I had been studying, I heard a talk I got to go to TED, which was really cool.
Oh, neat.
Wow.
And yeah, it was a life-changing experience. So I'm at TED and I, um, met some cool people. I got, I heard this talk basically that talked about something so simple. It's called OKRs, outcomes and key results.
Okay.
And John Doerr, who worked at Intel, became a famous venture capitalist, and he helped Google create their company.
Hmm.
And so they had used these outcomes and key results. It's basically goals and benchmarks. It's an IEP for your business or your project.
Oh,
And
funny.
so
You
I
could
had set,
relate, right?
yeah, I could relate. And I had set up this sabbatical period. I had gotten tenure and a full year of sabbatical, and I was just about to
Mhm.
start my reporting period, these outcomes and key results. And the famous manager at Intel had championed this approach, and that's how they built Intel, a local, big local business here in Oregon. And so it's the eve of that, and I go in for a minor outpatient surgery. And the young, really cool surgeon, this cool dude, right? He wakes me up early and says that it's cancer, that I
Wow.
have cancer.
Mhm.
And it was earth shattering.
You had no idea. You were not
I had
expecting.
no idea. I was just going along with my life. I have a couple young children. I'm married, working, serving the community, and then find out that it's a currently incurable blood cancer.
Mm.
Right?
Mm.
And just devastating. Um, and when I found out, they didn't kind of know, and it took about a year for it to play out. And then I got this
You.
huge tumor on my head that was boring into my brain. And you can still see where they did the biopsy. My ribs broke. There were tumors all through my skeleton.
Wow.
And
Mm.
I was put on a very strong dose of chemotherapy that killed that, those lesions.
Mhm.
And so the tumors were being killed, but I'm getting blasted with chemo.
Right.
And it was incredibly hard, absolutely
Mhm.
debilitating. And then I had the stem cell transplant.
Mm.
And that's where they use high dose chemotherapy to basically kill your blood. Your
Hmm.
red and white blood cells go to near zero. And you feel so weak. And some people cruise through a little bit. I was not one of them.
Mm.
All I could do was breathe at that low point, which they call the basement, and you're hospitalized. And so you're just trying to hold on and breathe and listen to a little quiet music. And then the stem cells, which are harvested from your own blood, come back to you. They infuse them and they help you recover. And so that it's like this glimmer of life, and you feel almost life itself.
Mm.
And it's a
Mm.
very special moment in my life. And I remember driving home and just feeling like, okay, I'm alive.
Mm.
I can breathe. I just
Wow.
hope to be okay. And so it
Mhm.
took an incredibly long time. to recover. That it's, you get sick and you feel like, it takes a week to get back. Oh, that's so slow, right? Now try months or years.
Right, because
Right.
And
it's
so,
been fighting the cancer, but it's fighting everything in your body too, right?
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, exactly. It just kills a lot of
Yeah.
stuff, and you have to have your excuse me, you have to have your childhood inoculations again. You have to
Mm,
rebuild
Oh.
your blood up. So that put me from being the doctor, right? Dr. Sam or Dr. Sennett, and loving to
Mm-hmm.
serve and doing probably too much,
Mm.
to all of a sudden I'm the patient.
mm,
Mm-hmm.
And that shift has been profound, and I believe is very, very important in my practice and in my life. But it's a
Mm-hmm.
very important insight, that this experience of being the patient, being on the other side.
right.
Yeah.
A, a totally different perspective. And
Yes,
um,
big perspective shift.
but the way you described that too, I just want to take a moment to feel that moment that you were describing, because with
Yeah.
the the energy and like that you were becoming alive again, I just got goosebumps. That was such a interesting
Yes.
way to
Yeah,
describe it.
thanks. Thanks,
Um,
Sarah, and Brenda. It's been really hard. I'm not going to joke or lie. And at the same time, um, there's been a lot of sweetness and a lot of grace in this time. And
Mm-hmm.
it's really been a 6-year journey so far. So
oh wow.
it's wearying. It's dizzying to keep up with my ongoing chemotherapy. So I have to
Yeah.
take a maintenance dose, and I've had to dedicate myself to taking care. And I had to take leave from my professorship for
Hmm.
a period of time. And it was so hard for me not to work with kids and
Mm-hmm.
do my work. Like
Yeah.
it took um, some real discipline to step back.
Uh,
So I did, and I had remembered how much I loved snowboarding from my youth.
Mm.
And I ended up getting a ticket and then a pass, and I got back into snowboarding. And
good for
that
you.
activity and fun helped
Mm-hmm.
bootstrap my progress. And
Hmm.
then weightlifting, doing healthy eating and juicing, like fresh vegetable juice, and eating all kinds of different foods like lion's mane mushrooms, and
Hmm.
um, all
Mm.
different, you
Just
know,
a different perspective on it.
yeah, yeah, but little practices that have
Hmm.
Yeah.
added up.
Hmm.
And then one of them in particular that's been really fun is surfing. And so I've learned to surf over the last couple seasons, and I adore it. I'm a beginner, but I'm progressing, and we're starting to do some adaptive surfing and adaptive
Oh,
work.
that's
Oh,
awesome.
neat.
So yeah, so out of this incredible hardship, um, it, I had just before the cancer, I had written this paper called AAC and AI,
Uh-huh.
and we had really gone into the fundamentals of AI, and knowing that this was coming, like when we
Yeah.
started working on the project in like 2018, and it's really played out. I mean, AI is everywhere. I feel like I went in like a coma, right? And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden, I'm waking up and feeling better and getting stronger. And now with Chat GPT and Google and Claude and all these amazing tools,
Hmm. Like you have to catch up and say, "Whoa, what happened?"
yeah, yeah, there's a catching up of like in
Mm-hmm.
AAC, there's so many things happening. So
Hmm.
it's been an incredibly trying experience, but I swear it's given me this enriched perspective around patient-centered and patient-led work.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I I appreciate you sharing that, Dr. Sennett.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really important. I think it's important for many things. I think it's important we hear stories from each other and that we can share things like this. And then also, I'm also a cancer survivor. Different story than yours, but I had a really good cure rate and relatively easy, I think. But I always say that I was 21, and I say the same thing, that I think it completely changed I had a pretty positive perspective on life, but I think it really changed my perspective in many ways. And thinking about things like when you're in or dealing with my mom who recently passed away, when you're in the medical arena, all of a sudden, I'm thinking I'm used to the school and the school lingo and all of our acronyms, but now all of a sudden you're thrown into the medical arena like you are, right? And you're hearing all of these things and things are flying by. And I think, gosh, what if I was speaking a different language and I was dealing with this? Or what if I had different experiences and I was dealing with this? This is something completely new I'm learning about. So that's just one way it does kind of change your perspective, I think, thinking about patient-centered.
Yeah, you experienced that so young, Sarah. That's remarkable. Wow. Um, yeah, these cancer in general can be incredibly trying, and the treatments are very challenging at times, but people do move through it. And so
Hmm.
with cancers that are curable, um, I don't know what that's like because mine is considered currently incurable. They don't really have a way to get rid of it, but they can treat it. And
Hmm.
so with this harsh chemo, um, I can maintain my life, but now I have to counteract the treatment, right? The side effects of the treatment. And so
Right.
it's put me in a precarious place, but at the same time, I have had some of the most fun and some of the most interesting experiences in my life and my career
Hmm.
during this time. And a couple of them I can mention. One is I've gotten, I've always been, or for a long time, been real friendly with Latif McLeod, and he just got his PhD.
Hmm.
He lives in Oakland. He's a AAC user. Do you guys know Latif?
I'm not familiar with Latif.
Okay, you got to check out his work. He
Okay.
he is he's a poet, and he's got a good education, and then has been a leader in AAC and worked with Isaac, with Kevin Williams on some various projects. And so Latif and I had been close, and during this time we I got asked to write a book, and it was the charge was the AAC textbook by Buchelman and Miranda.
Hmm.
Now Janice Light's taken the lead, right? David Buchelman passed on, and Pat Miranda retired. And so the participation model is something we study a lot in AAC classes and colleges.
Hmm.
And so Susan Johnson had a vision to write the other side of the participation model, that the
Mm.
access side is well specified in the AAC textbook, but the opportunity barrier side was only given a few pages, and some of the areas were only given a few paragraphs. And
Mm.
so it was so cool. Susan wrote to me and we had this conversation. I said, Susan, I love your approach of listening to the voices of AAC users, but it'd be really cool if at the leadership level, an AAC user could be on this team. And
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
Latif stepped up, and that process of going back and looking at the original notes from David Buchelman and Pat Miranda,
Wow.
it hit me how relevant this participation model is. And I know that the graphic, people get lost in all the boxes, and we've tried to
Hmm.
hack it with my friend Eric Sanders and I used to hack the set framework on top of it, and we'd kind
Oh,
of
Hmm.
yeah.
overlay it and interpret it with our work. But long story short, Latif and colleagues, we got to write this book, and it was a really cool process. And from looking at that original participation model to getting to speak with Pat Miranda about that early process, and what the vision was, to writing a book about the other side. And
Fascinating.
Latif and Eric and I were in charge of attitude barriers and policy barriers. And I think these are very interesting with AI, right? Thinking
Hmm.
about attitudes and how AI can be a tool for changing perspectives, and with policy, I think that there's some interesting areas, with creating policy that supports AAC users overall, but creating policies around authorship and dignity and respect. There's some good work there, but just the idea that from having cancer, being a patient, going through all of this, I've still gotten to do some really cool things during this time. And as I've gotten stronger, I see that this perspective shift of before, when I thought about the participation model, it was someone else.
Mm.
It was thinking about kids, like we were talking about how a lot of your work focuses on the schools, and
Mm-hmm.
thinking
Mm-hmm.
about children going to school in that environment, and then
Mm-hmm.
supporting them in the community at their homes. But now I think about myself with the participation model, that I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to navigate a complex world with disabilities, right?
Mm-hmm.
With acquired disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
And it just feels so important to be focusing on things that are important to me.
Mm-hmm.
Ideas like self-determination have been given a new light, new perspective. So yeah, it's been really heavy. Thanks for listening about it and letting me share.
Mm.
Well,
I've
Thank
just
you for
tried to
sharing
be.
and being so vulnerable with your
yeah, and
story.
it makes us
Thanks, Brenda.
better supporters, right? And better to help others when we can use our own experiences and
Yeah.
Yeah, so this place I'm in, it's a little challenging for me. I know we met with that pod training, and I love kind of this very expansive work where we tackle a lot of things and explore and do lots of hands-on work. And I find myself, in this relatively weakened state where I have to move forward in a new way, in a
mm,
much more balanced way.
Mm.
And it's beautiful also because I've worked super hard to become a leader, and now I get to play kind of a unique leadership role as a professor
Mm-hmm.
and as a scientist.
yeah, and by also boosting others to be in that leadership role, like you said, having AAC users represented. You mentioned something in your book, which we need the title of your book, and we can add that to our show notes too. But you mentioned something about attitude barriers towards AI. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. Um, so with the book, we looked at these opportunity barriers, and see if I have a copy. Yep. So here's the book.
There it
Uh,
is. Augmentative and alternative communication. What's the
Yeah, so it's the full it's supporting individuals who use AAC, and then it's breaking down opportunity barriers. And so Susan Johnston, Cindy Gervader from Arizona, I mean New Mexico, Latif and Eric Sanders. And so when we looked at attitude barriers, one of the things that jumped out was just this. Like, you can't just say like you have an attitude problem, right? You have an attitude barrier. But
Well,
when
you
we look,
can if you have teenagers, but it usually isn't that effective either.
that's great. That's great. Um, but when you spend significant amounts of time with people who use AAC, especially when you get to like hang back and just observe, you learn a lot about how people's attitudes influence the interactions and experiences and overall opportunities that you have as an individual. And I think about, I went to, it wasn't Disneyland, it was Epcot Center with Chris Klein. Do you guys know
Oh,
Chris Klein?
yeah.
AAC
Hmm.
user, he uses his foot.
Yeah.
real dynamic, very very cool person. And just seeing how Chris was treated at Epcot, I remember that was one of the experiences that really showed me that attitudes matter. And it's
Mm.
little subtle things. It's how people are looked at and spoken to, and it adds up, right? And some of them are glaring, right? When like an adult spoken to like they're a child,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
and that's pretty common for people. Or just, you're out maybe grabbing a drink or having some food, and the personal care or direct service professional is addressed rather than the adult who uses
Mhm.
AAC. So there's
Yes.
these little things, and it is a tricky thing, right? Like how do you navigate that? How do you combat it, if you will?
Right.
And so with um, with AI, for instance, as this is something that's gone on since a long time ago, I remember
Mm.
speaking with the founder of Siri, Tom Gruber,
Mm.
about his experience with AI, and he did his master's work in the early 80s
Wow.
on AI and AAC and prediction. And so there's a new project from a team that includes Stephanie Valencia, the human computer interaction researcher who's gotten really into AI and AAC,
Mm-hmm.
a new professor in Maryland. And so they have a new paper around joke telling and looking at all the context around telling jokes if
Oh.
you're someone who uses AAC, and looking at the speed and timing. And
Mhm.
so, I mean, that's a great example of how you could shift attitudes with telling a well-timed joke, right?
Oh,
Mhm.
right. Right.
So I think with any of these areas, I mean, it's so complex thinking about adults who have acquired disabilities
Mhm.
versus, we're talking about the schools. And I was just looking at the AAC journal and thinking about our conversation and how, there's a review of all the early childhood and preschool AAC interventions for children with autism. I mean, there's just such a diverse set of needs. I was just
Right.
with the Rett syndrome community this past weekend and thinking about some of these questions. And our attitudes play a huge role in how we treat children, what education we give them, what opportunities we give them in school. So it's
Mhm.
so comprehensive, our beliefs and where we start. But it seems like it's kind of obvious to people like you and a lot of the people probably listening to this podcast who care so much that we're trying to
Right.
break that stuff down. And it's really quite a gift and privilege to be alongside others like you who care and are serving, and then alongside the families and these individuals. It just feels like such a privilege to get to see them for who they really are and care about
Mm.
them and be somebody who, we can be people who check our own attitudes and try to do better.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's I mean there's people have studied attitude for a long time, and there's whole fields who are studying these spaces around disability studies and disability justice. It's really important to understand how we think about others and how we behave, because it influences our actions. It influences our policies and our practice.
So you mentioned humor. Sorry, you mentioned
Mhm.
humor, and I've said that for a long time that it's, and I don't know what the research is around it, but my own research is
Mm.
that when you are working with a child who has demonstrated a sense of humor, there is a perceived level of intellect there, right? So if they laugh at the right things, basically, it's, oh, the show's on and they laugh, so I know they understand everything, right?
Markers of comprehension. Good
Yeah, that
language, right? Yeah.
humor seems to be part of those markers of comprehension, right? Where, and that's well said. And so it's like I'm wondering in what role does AI play in AAC in helping those shape and challenge those attitudes around AAC users?
Oh yeah, that's real interesting. Well, one that jumps out. So I was looking at this quick picks. Have you seen this paper? Howard Shane and team worked on it. I believe I'm looking at it now. It's an available app, but one of or the basic use case is you snap a photo, and I'm looking at a picture of a cake, and then
Mm-hmm.
all this context vocabulary that's
Yeah.
automatically populated, right?
Okay.
And
Right.
so I think about my friend and colleague Adam Bowker, and he had studied play, and he's really into play.
Mm-hmm.
And you can imagine if you're a little kid and you want to play with other little kids, and all of a sudden they start talking about Batman,
Mm-hmm.
and they can say all the words like Batmobile and Boomerang or whatever the
Right.
bat tools
Right.
are, and
Hmm.
Alfred coming in and setting up the tools in the Bat Cave.
Hmm.
And I just think it's so cool to have these types of automations that quickly
Mm-hmm.
allow participation,
Mm-hmm.
right?
And
Where that kid might know how to use that board, how to play, but they don't have that vocabulary. So it could be as
Mm-hmm.
simple as that, of just quickly populating novel vocabulary that may not be available in a commercial AAC system, or even with a customized AAC system, you might not get to all the action figures or
Right.
the newest one or the old one. Like,
right.
Right.
maybe Batman just wasn't on the radar, right?
Right.
Um, yeah, so I loved Batman as a kid, so it would be on my AC board. But just that type of relatively simple technology, that some of that's been available. We could
Hmm.
do those types of things, like thinking about how Don Johnston has had that great word prediction, and they've had word banks where it's
Right.
Right.
more of
Sure.
like a classical AI where you kind of intelligently program it to do the
Hmm.
thing. And
Right.
now um, we have a more robust tool set, you could say.
Pretty user friendly in many ways. Like for the one you're explaining, for example.
Yeah, that they're just usable, that you can just try them out. And
Mm-hmm. And just think about the perception of of same age peers, right? Because
totally.
they can be on task with with vocabulary that's relevant in phrase-based language, that matches their peers, and then their perception is very much like, oh, we like the same thing. I think sometimes physical disability, especially well, actually for all people, probably, you think, I don't know what I have in common with this person, right? And then the dialogue is we're all talking about Batman, and the child, joins in, and it's like, oh, turns out we have something in common, right? And I mean, I think anytime we can demonstrate similarities between children who that don't know that they have anything in common with someone with a disability, we start to break down those barriers for sure and shift the mindsets early on, right? So that it's not we're not having to undo a lot of biases that come in throughout their lives.
Wow, yeah, thinking about children growing up having more access to inclusion and these
Hmm.
tools for participation, and not just communication and language, but all different parts of life. That's exciting to think about some of these kids not feeling the results of those attitude barriers,
Hmm.
and then thinking about how that compounds over time. It's very exciting for the youth.
It does seem that a lot of the AI features are dependent on literacy skills. And I'm wondering where we're headed with being helping those that are not yet literate, whether that be their age or their lack of experience in literacy instruction. Where are we at with that?
Yeah, so um, a good um, a good way to look at it is kind of through the AI terminology.
Mm-hmm.
One of the main areas of AI is computer vision. And this is where you can recognize images and make sense of them as a computer. And so, visual scene displays. I
Right.
studied with Janice Light at Penn State, and she was really into the power of visual scene displays, where you can snap a photo or have an image and then somehow draw a hotspot
Mm-hmm.
around a
Yes.
item in the image or something in the image that you'd like to speak or show text or show other visuals with that activation. And so one area with AI that's pretty exciting is to be able to do some of that automatically.
Mm-hmm.
So
The
with,
hotspot.
yeah,
Yeah.
to be able to make hotspots automatically, or to be able to interpret those images and create hotspots that then have links back to literacy.
Mm-hmm.
I know at Penn State they've done some research around I believe what they call text to literacy. I mean, sorry, is it text to literacy? There's something clever like that where they use visual scene displays and connections to literacy.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
So text to literacy doesn't sound quite right, so I'll have to look that up. Good little exploration. So yeah, there with images and computer vision, there seems to be a lot more we could do and explore. So
Mm-hmm.
exciting to see what comes out around that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's an interesting.
Do you see the AI tools interfacing with the AAC or being separate tools or both?
Well, yeah, I can speak about it from what I see and what I'm observing, and then kind of thinking more holistically. So, I've been trying to monitor things closely, and seeing like Smartbox and Grid
Mm-hmm.
incorporating features right into the app.
Yeah.
And then I was just looking at called Vocable. Have you?
Vocable. Okay. Mm-hmm.
And they
Mm.
they have this feature. You have to turn it on under listening. It's called listening mode. And then what it does is allows you to speak and talk about something like going to a pizza party.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's popped
And
up with.
it gives predictive responses. And it just did yes or no. Other times when I've tried it out, it might have some words around pizza.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I've seen that.
Interesting. Yeah. I think it just did that at the end there. Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah, so there's so many directions to go with
Mm-hmm.
this tool set.
Yeah. It's funny because you were talking about kind of like it's like you were in a coma and then came out and there's all these things. It's like even within this one conversation, there's so many things to be exploring for me to explore, at least things I don't know about. And but it's a good reminder also kind of from your experience to take it slow and just do what we can.
Yeah, there's tons of ethical considerations around privacy. Like
Mm-hmm.
just knowing that these tools, when they do collect your data, they have different privacy expectations than
Mm-hmm.
normal ed tech, normal AAC tools. So
Mm-hmm.
Right.
it's kind of a longer conversation around that. And I think in the schools there's groups nationally working on this, and we've come a long way with the thinking. We happen to have a couple of people here in Oregon who are at the forefront of that. Um, but yeah, from a vision standpoint, it feels somewhat inevitable to have access to these, and I think we've already had this embedded in AAC. I mean, I sat down and had this really cool interview with Tom Gruber, who was the one of the co-founders of Siri, like I mentioned, and that just really impressed me that it's like this conversation we're having, people were having in the 70s and the 80s with the same kind of level of excitement at different
Yeah.
times, right? That AI has kind of become popular at different times and hold a lot of
Hmm.
potential. And now it does seem like things are very different. The tool sets are much better. And I really like the idea of existing AAC apps trying to incorporate these things because
Hmm.
a lot of those companies, the people have so much integrity and
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
much care for people. And
Hmm.
so I love open source and pushing boundaries, but there is a balance of risk where if you have a lot of people who aren't standing on the shoulders of giants, aren't building off some of the hard-earned
Hmm.
or hard-fought understandings that we've learned about in
Hmm.
AAC, like focusing on agency, like
Hmm.
focusing on self-determination,
Hmm.
that things could go in strange directions. We could make
Hmm.
mistakes, like creating lots of prerequisites,
That's
for
true.
Hmm.
instance.
And there's a lot of thought and research that has been put into these existing tools. So
Absolutely.
building off of that, yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Before we already have to wrap up soon, which is crazy because it's been such a great conversation. Can you share? You mentioned the article that you wrote,
Yeah.
AAC and AI. Is that what it was?
Yes.
Can you share a
Yes.
little bit about that, and we'll make sure to link it too.
Yeah, absolutely. So the story goes, our laboratory, this is just before my cancer really blew up, had this vibrant group of students, and one of them was the late Mary Lee, who was a promising undergrad student. And she was just so smart, and she and I just really read in AI, and we read the main textbook, and with her help, and then we brought in Anthony Rhodes, who was a PhD student in AI at the time, and then Linda Akagi, who's this woman who's become my close collaborator, and she is turning 70 this year, uses AAC, has cerebral palsy, is a grad of our university and our public school here in
Oh, neat.
Portland. And
Hmm.
so she brought some really important perspective with this
Hmm.
paper, and it was right when Google had first shown at their conference. I can't remember the exact name of their project, but it was this early GPT technology where you could make a phone call, and it would automate the conversation of booking a haircut or ordering a
Hmm.
pizza. And it showed the power of using this generative AI technology that with this natural language processing technology. And so we were just so excited, and I remember meeting with our dean, and he leaned in, and he never spoke to me this way. He leaned in and he went, AI is very important in education.
Hmm.
It's good for you to study that. And I'll always remember that. He was such a cool
Hmm.
person. And so
Hmm.
we went to work, and I think what's nice about the paper is it's a primer and shows the
Hmm.
main areas of AI.
Hmm.
And the areas are knowledge representation and reasoning. And this is so exciting for intervention and evals to be able to have these banks of knowledge that you
Yeah.
can pull from. And, it's a little wonky right now, but you can
Right.
see the potential with, say, Google Gemini's deep research that
Oh, yeah.
it can all be cited and it can be really well organized. So
Yeah.
Hmm.
that's an exciting area. Machine learning in general, just understanding kind of how that works and what the fundamentals are for predictions, pretty cool. Computer vision, which we mentioned, and then natural language processing, which has helped, blow up AI into the mainstream. And then an area that maybe we're not thinking about as much is robotics. And so just as a primer, I think it's a pretty cool tool, but what we have is a table where we outline opportunities and then risks and precautions. And
Hmm.
that view, I think, looking at looking at the potential and then looking at the problems is a real important way to go about this, that it's
Hmm.
not all good. We may use these tools in ways that are inadvertently impacting students in a negative
Hmm.
way.
Hmm.
So we got to be careful And
Yeah.
at the same time, I think my work this past year, and I'd love to share a little bit about it if we have time.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so like I said, I was real busted up and still have lots of limitation, but got an invitation to be part of a project with Communication First and Oregon Health Science University called the AAC Peer Support Consortium, co-led and really championed by people who use AAC. And we just had an amazing year studying peer supports. And
Mm.
I think seeing now how there's an amazing core group of adults and young adults who use AAC who are really taking their leadership role seriously is incredibly exciting and I think important and promising for the study of AAC.
Mm-hmm.
And
Hmm.
so I think that's just an important thing. But getting to work with those folks for the year, we had been doing this work with peer supports and AAC mentors. It was so fun. We ran this music program, and it was just thrilling to be able to create music and make playlists and play drums and have just a fun time with people during COVID. It was an amazing thing.
Oh.
And so I got to test out a lot of these ideas and hear from these adults. And then kind of, like I said, wake up and all of a sudden there's a year-long consortium about this topic. And it was a
Hmm.
great privilege of my life to be
Mm.
part of this. Melanie Fried Oken at OHSU, it was her final project before retirement. And she said it was one of the most meaningful experiences she had.
Oh, wow.
Mm.
Seeing this shift where the users took over and the leadership was
Mm.
profound. And it was beautifully orchestrated. And so, with that as the backdrop, my colleague and I, Linda, have worked on this project around sport, music, and art again. So, coming back to that original
Yeah.
project and seeing how we're taking youth to the Portland Trailblazers, so taking youth to professional sports.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And we are so excited for this year because we're going to go to the Blazers again, and we booked 2 hours on the court for a dance party, and we had this
Oh,
cool disabled DJ, and
wow.
oh, it's going to be so amazing. So if you can come down from Washington, please do.
I
It's
was
going to
gonna
be
say, is this
incredible.
open?
Yeah, no, it is,
How
and
fun.
it's in spring 26. But the point is that we're going to be creating some boards and some vocabulary sets around these experiences. And the reason why I know this is important is I met one of the Rett syndrome families this past weekend, and one of the families came up to me and said, Sam, we remember this earlier work. We went to the zoo trip
Hmm.
and you gave out these topic specific boards for the zoo. And
Mhm.
we had really worked hard on it, and they still use it when they go to the zoo years later.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And the point is that these things that used to take almost Herculean efforts, right, to bring people
Yes.
together and create things thoughtfully and edit them and make sure
Yes.
they kind of fit what we know about motor planning, let's say, or
Yeah.
stay having integrity with the systems people are using. And those are just a couple examples that now we just we have automated tools that might advance some of these efforts and make
Yeah.
it so that we can combine our human intelligence with a great starting place
Right.
that might be pre-populated. And then thinking about, I remember there was an AAC app when we came out with Proloquo2Go called Locabulary, and
Hmm.
it was location-based vocabulary.
Mm-hmm.
And that traces back to some of this work with the Higginbotham and colleagues were studying a lot of these context-based ways to organize AAC, and I see it coming back around where we can use context so much more effectively. And for readers, I think looking at Valencia's work and
Mm-hmm.
the now multiple years of Kai, and that's the Computer Human Interaction Conference papers, a couple generations of papers there that the HCI community, the computer science community, is very excited about serving. And so they're
Mm-hmm.
championing really good design techniques. And we have great tradition of design work. And there's a new book by Graham Poulin and out of his studio in the UK, Studio Ordinary. And it's an incredible
Mm.
resource.
Tell us the titles.
Yeah, the title is Exploring Different Futures of Communication with People Who Do and Don't Use AAC. And so it's just phenomenal. I'm flipping through and then the screen's cutting it off. But in summary, this new project that we're doing out in the community is community-based participatory action research. And my thought is that just being together and bringing the community together is enough. That is the context for organic peer
Yeah.
supports and organic friendship to occur.
Yes.
And we've seen that, and it's beautiful. And we have this great resource from the consortium for the full year. The consortium put together this incredible report. And so you might be able to link to that.
Definitely. That would be great.
Sure.
I think this message I want to leave you with is that I think communities can do a really good job of studying AI and AAC together, whether it
Mm-hmm.
be trying out these initial experimentation type apps or trying out the new features from the big companies. That a community dialogue is important. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
happening now. You're having that dialogue, right, through your
Mm-hmm.
podcast. And it's cool seeing what you guys have done with that set center and the resources with the webinars. I think communities looking at this, trying it out, it's scary, right? A lot can go wrong, but a lot can go right. And it's our
Mm-hmm.
job to harness this like we
Yes.
did with mobile technologies, like we've done with eye tracking, like we're trying to do with
Right.
AR and VR.
And
Yeah.
everything to come, right? All the next thing.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
iterative.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great point, Sarah.
Well, thank you so much. This has just been a really fantastic conversation. You brought up a lot of things I hadn't thought of before. Um, Tons of resources that we're going to have to get from
Yes.
you. I know our listeners are going to want to learn more about your paper, your project that's going on, and some of the folks that you've mentioned, the AAC users. So many great resources. And then especially thank you for sharing your personal story and how that's shaped how you view that participation model and just how you go about your work. We appreciate it.
Yes,
Thanks,
it's
Sarah.
truly a
Thanks.
pleasure kind of hearing your perspective and the shift in that way. And just you're such an example of a person who has been collaborating in your career from day one. And I think it's absolutely essential as we move forward. So thank you for being a model in that area as well.
Thanks, Brenda. Thanks, Sarah. This is great to be part of your podcast.
This podcast is produced by the Special Education Technology Center, administered by Central Washington University, and funded in part by OSPI. However, the content does not necessarily represent the policy of CWU and OSPI, and you should not assume endorsement by the state government.